Good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's Planning Committee of the 18th of December 2024. The first item on the agenda, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillor Bowen, who is poorly.
Thank you. Any other apologies?
Apologies for Councillor Barrett and Ben. Hopefully they will be here, but it could be late.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Hellcross-Scott.
Thank you for the Christmas treats, and I'm subbing for Councillor Maritime.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda, is the record of the meeting held on the 20th of November 2024 approved? Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, I can confirm that there are no late items which do not appear on the main agenda. The next item, item 4, do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you. My usual declaration, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so moving on to item 5, Strood Civic Centre. Sorry, Councillor Filmer.
Non-pecuniary interest in the Civic Centre. There's quite a bit in the papers regarding the Bridge Trust, which I'm a council nominee for, so I won't take part in any discussions regarding that item.
Okay, thank you. So item 5, Strood Civic Centre. Councillor Hubbard would like to speak as ward member. Is this agreed by members? Thank you. So now moving over to Peter Hockley, the service manager, who will be presenting this application. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. If I show the first slide, which is the plan of the site that you can see there. The site's largely cleared brownfield site that you'll see from the later slides, which formerly housed the Invicta Engineering Works Factory, the Aveling and Porter building, and it was also the site of the council offices. It's located in Strood. You can see on one side it's bounded by the River Medway. The A2 runs alongside to the northeast, and then along the northwestern boundary is the railway line. There's a small inlet here from the Medway along that boundary too. The aerial photograph here shows the site as it exists, with the A2 located here, the esplanade, and then the start of the bridge links Rochester with Strood. The site also includes the ambulance station, which exists on the site currently, and again, as we move forward, we'll have slightly more discussion on that aspect too. Again, here are views of the site as it exists at the moment, taken from the bridge. A view into and out of the site by the railway bridge. So, as you remember, from the sort of northwestern boundary corner around there. This is a view along the cycle path, which runs alongside the River Medway, with the pumping station in this photograph. A view back into the site with the building here. You can see the flats that are on the A2. This is the view from the site, looking across the river to Rochester, and obviously the significant landmarks within Rochester of the castle and the cathedral. This photograph shows the flood wall and the area of grass which is located outside of the site boundary, but just for its context. This slide shows the former Aveling and Porter building that was on the site previously. This is view along the esplanade. This site layout, I think you can just about make out the colours on there. You've got it's predominantly residential, so in total there is 195 homes. 140 of those are apartments, 55 houses, and in total 25% of the homes would be affordable. There's a cafe facility, which you can see in this colour here, which is located in this area, and a live-work unit, which is located adjacent to the row of properties that extends out towards Strood High Street. As I say, the rest of the site is predominantly residential. The blue area, which is probably the most noticeable on the colour chart on the slide, is the new ambulance station and associated parking. This is the building heights plan, so you can see that predominantly the scheme is 3 to 4 stories, with some 2-storey development, which is predominantly the housing parts of the scheme. And you've got, in terms of the design, it's set as perimeter blocks around the site, with these properties having the views across the river. This is a plan showing the car parking layout, and you can see that that's spread throughout the development. Some of it's on plot, some of it's in parking courts. The ambulance parking is the beige colour there, with the ambulance station parking in this sort of dark pink. I think that's what that colour is. In terms of the sort of ethos of the scheme, it's proposed to be quite a sort of loose development with a lot of communal space surrounding the perimeter blocks to give that sort of feel of openness. You'll see from the report that I think in terms of the initial master plan, it was envisaged that there would be a lot more development on the site. However, this scheme has evolved since that document was produced, and we're now looking at a development of a much lower scale, much lower density, and it sort of performs a lot better in terms of not only its design and layout as a piece, but as it reflects the surrounding character and also the views across the river, but probably most importantly reflects the historic buildings that were on the site, particularly the Evelyn and Porter building. As well as the dwellings and the built form themselves, there are some off-site highway works that are proposed in this location. And we've got plans and details of those, which would be secured through a Section 278 agreement. And you'll see from the history there's flood defence works which have previously got consent, and those have been commenced as well. Excuse me. You'll see from the agenda, pages 39 to 42, that the Rochester Bridge Trust accept the principle of development on the site, but they do raise a number of points as part of their representation. Many of those points relate to highway matters, which have been dealt with in the report. But if members do require any further clarification, our highway consultant is here. In terms of the design itself, as you can see from here, this is the building that takes its cues and design cues from the Evelyn Porter building. And you've got, this is the street elevation fronting the cycle path. So again, that's what you'd see from the river, essentially, from there. And these are the internal views of the houses that front the river. Again, some more views. This one's from the A2, so you've got the live-work unit, which essentially finishes the row of properties here, and then the access, and then the step to the development along the rest of the site. Again, some more variations of these. This is the image of the proposed elevations looking from Rochester. And you can see how the development is set with the sort of greened public open space to the front of the development to give that layering effect to it and to introduce that additional space between the site boundary and the built form. And again, this slide shows the comparison of the former Evelyn and Porter building and the development that takes its design cues with the proportions and the sort of roofscape design from that previous building. This is a good visual of how the dwellings here would interact with the public open space and then the cycle path, and how they'll look together as a sort of three elements of the site. The river's just off the slide to the right hand side there, but you can see that the scheme provides some play and some opportunity for leisure and for recreation and dwell time for both residents and wider population, and it will have that natural surveillance from the dwellings here, so that it will assist with any potential antisocial behaviour issues that would occur as well. Again, this is an illustration of one of the internal streets. And this is an evening view of the cafe location on the corner with the public square. So, in terms of the scheme, as you can see from the slides and from the report, it's a well-designed scheme. It provides 190 homes. You can see from the report and the 41 conditions that are attached that there's a number that are there to be to secure a high quality finish and completion of the development. Just a few that I'd like to draw members' attention to. Condition 7 talks about requiring the submission of public art. And that will form an integral part of the development. And conditions 15, 16 and 17 ensure that residents of all the properties will have adequate amenity in relation to matters of air quality, transport noise, and also any industrial or commercial noise. So that ensures that the future amenity of those occupiers is of a good standard. And we are recommending approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Now move over to Councillor Hubbard, who's going to speak as ward member, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for putting up that image. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My thanks to the officer's excellent presentation.
and if people will be able to look at those images on the screen. Firstly, I urge the committee members to support this planning application. I'm 100% behind it. I'm impressed by the design of the development as it reflects former buildings that occupied the site or were located nearby. Not just the Avon Porter building, but the former Rochester Bridge station, etc. I know the site very well, having been first elected onto Rochester Port Medway City Council in May 1991, alongside Phil. The photograph on the left-hand side is one I took. I should have had copyright on it. I took it from the former MP's for Medway's office window. I worked there for over 10 years. The view from the MP's office across the window, whether it be Mill Pond still, as is more or less in that photograph, or boarding turbulence, was dominated by the former Civic Centre, and in particular the red brick building that had been the offices at Avon Porting, which I know is very important to Councillor Pearce. That building was Strood's dominant gateway building, and it was a disgrace that this council demolished the said building. It was a nonsense to demolish the Avon Porter building alongside the two office buildings that were of poor construction and of no architectural merit. The former offices of Avon Porter building was of great merit and of sound construction. In the years leading up to the demolition, I and other councillors and the City of Rochester Society requested of the then Conservative administration and the senior council officers that we see sight of the civil engineering structural survey report that was said to have concluded that the building was unsafe. But when it was too late to stop the demolition, I was given a copy of the report, but it was not a structural survey report. It was a quantity surveyor's report that detailed the condition of the building and the works required over several years to address the issues like replacing carpet, replacing putty in the windows, rewiring some of the parts of the building, etc. As the building was demolished, in addition to that photograph on the screen, I took a series of photographs from the MP's office, a very depressing exercise. I saw bits and bits of less and less of that building. The reason for my wife's family moving from Rye to Strood was to take up employment at Avon and Porter. And my wife's late grandmother had a great sense of grieving loss to see the building, that lovely red brick building, demolished. As I said, I'm happy to see, more than happy to see that the Avon Porter building has been reflected in the buildings that are proposed to the site. They're not a pastiche, they shouldn't be. But it does actually show some of the inheritance. And also, it's not just the inheritance of Avon Porter, you've got shorts across the way as well. And it actually does make use of the creek, which is James Creek, having buildings going onto it. And took many an hour discussing with the architects about this site, and I'm glad to see they took on the board my comments, especially about the colour of the brick on the buildings facing onto James Creek, which were actually a lighter brick to start with rather than the red brick, which I think is ideal for the site. So just finally to say, can I ask members to support this application? It is something that the site needs to develop some years ago, but it needs to develop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hubbard. I now open the floor to members. Any members? Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to my ward colleague again for his contribution there and a lot of the background of the site and its previous use. As a fellow ward member for this area, I'm pleased to see this application come forward to this committee. It is an application that has good merit in terms of its architectural design, in terms of actually providing provision for desperately needed housing, including 25% of housing being affordable housing. I'm also glad to see the cafe bar actually to give a little bit of activation to the town centre and to encourage people to see those wonderful views in Medway's best ward. I just wanted to say this is certainly an application I will be wholeheartedly supporting tonight, and I would encourage members of the fellow committee to also support it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Golvin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll also be supporting this. I'm in the position that, had I still been a director of MDC, I wouldn't have been able to speak this evening. So that's the only advantage I could see of not having a member on the board of MDC. But it doesn't counteract all the difficulties that of not having, now we've not got members on board of actually managing that company. But that's for another time. This site has been awaiting development for a long, long time. And it's really good now to see this coming forward. And I think you've got to put in perspective also about the problems with the site. In the report, it explains you could either have 106 or you could have affordable, not both. And the reason for that is it's a very costly site indeed to redevelop. In fact, when it was actively marketed a few years ago, no private developer was interested in taking it on for that reason. And, you know, which amazed me because, like other members, I was a member of Rochester Medway Council those years ago, and the view, when you got out of your car to get into the Civic building or the other, or leaving, was stunning. No matter what time of the day, the night or year, that view was to die for. It is one of the, it's not just one of the best views in Medway. I think it's or the country. It is a worldwide, you know, thing. There's very few places in the world that have that wonderful aspect. So, and I would have thought that that would have added a great deal of value to the site, but it doesn't seem to have been the case. Going through the report, I did notice there was quite a lot, as the officer mentioned, of concerns by the Bridge Trust. I'd like just a reassurance that all those concerns have actually been met. I've been told that it has, but I would like that confirmed, please. Also, there's another little thing I'd like to see put in there as an advisory or something. Somewhere in the council's possession is the foundation stone of the Aveling and Porter offices and a commemorative plaque, which I think was a centenary of Aveling. They are somewhere in the council's ownership, and I think that now the site has been developed, they should go back onto that site as a feature. I don't know where they're stored, I wish I did, but they're somewhere, probably in the basement at Gun Wharf, under a load of old files and things. But I would very, very much like to see those brought back, because that gives a bit of the historic context to the site. Comment was made earlier by a member about it was wrong to demolish the old building. Whilst I agree it's a very attractive, or was a very attractive building, there's two issues that prohibited it staying. One, the buildings, the whole site needed to be raised to make it not so liable for flooding. Had that building remained, it would have been very, very difficult to build a wall round it and then raise the rest of the site. It would have actually inhibited the development of the whole site. And as the council, as owners of that building, would have been liable to pay 50% of the non-domestic rate for all these years. That would have been a huge drain on the council's resources. And you know, our present tight financial position is no different from what we've had for many, many years. And having that extra, having to lose 50% of that non-domestic rate to go to the government would have been very, very tying on the council's finances. Just to sum up, no, I think this is a fantastic development. It's well thought out. It's had quite a lot of iterations over the years. And I, personally, having seen some of the early schematics, I think this present scheme is far better than was first proposed, so, which is good to see. So I presume that's been done with discussion with officers, and I think we have now got a really good quality development that we can all be proud of. But I would just like that reassurance, Dave, or somebody, that the concerns of the Bridge Trust have been taken into account. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, did you want to come back?
Do you want to take other councillors first?
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Any other? Councillor Hamilton, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions, just seeking some reassurance, really. It regards the fact that the River Medway is a tidal river. We are quite clearly affected and seeing the effects of climate change. Clearly, being a tidal river, we're also subject to rising sea levels within our local authority area. And we do have quite consistent flooding along the esplanade and that area of the river. So really it's, as a planning department, are we confident that the flood risk and flood resistance and resilience proposals are sufficiently robust for it? And then my second area of concern is really around the fact that it's adjacent to the A2, it's an area of high levels of congestion already, and what is the likely impact on traffic in the immediate vicinity to the development?
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Over to you, Dave.
Do you want to take all members and I'll come back and answer all the questions?
Right, Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you. In terms of the affordable homes coming forward, can anybody tell me just how many of those affordable homes will be accessible for people with disabilities? And if the answer is none, can we ensure that there is a percentage of those that come forward as being accessible, please?
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairperson. The elephant in the room here with this application is the fact that the applicant is the council's own development firm. Medway Council is the sole shareholder of Medway Development Company. So I believe the planning committee here this evening, in a rare occasion, has the upper hand, because I don't see the applicant spending money and also the council spending money taking itself to a planning appeal if, for example, the applicant refused or appealed a condition to granting consent. I understand that Medway Development Company was set up for the public benefit and so that the council could have greater control specifically over the type and design of development on many prominent and important town centre sites, which this one is. The applicant is not the same as a private developer who intend to make millions of pounds in profits. This means that with this applicant, more money should and could be invested into the design of the development itself or the surrounding area, benefiting local people. The mission statement for the applicant states to deliver high quality housing with a focus on creating sustainable communities that will support economic development and prosperity. Sustainable community means the wider community, not just the development site itself. Also, the government recently published a press release talking about a planning overhaul to reach 1.5 million new houses. They mentioned tough new golden rules on development to guarantee affordable housing, which this does, but also local services and green spaces. The government says that developers must provide the necessary infrastructure for local communities such as nurseries, GP surgeries and transport, as well as a premium level of social and affordable housing. Two of those golden rules include boosting public services and infrastructure and improving green spaces, and I completely agree with this. But the proposal at the moment does not currently do this at present. I also agree with the leader of the council who said a couple of years ago that it cannot be right that developers proceed with building in Medway without making the right contributions to infrastructure. That's the leader's words. Medway Development Company should be leading by example. I've taken a look at the scheme viability appraisal, and the figures show revenue of £71 million from the sale of the properties and costs of £62 million, which includes design and build, marketing and sales, site acquisition and financing. So expected profit on this site is expected to be around £9 million for the applicant. But because the applicant believes they are entitled to a minimum private developer's profit of £11.7 million, they say the development is unviable and therefore they shouldn't have to pay any Section 106 contributions amounting to around £1.8 million. This site is a town centre location, it's close to railway stations, it's close to London, and it overlooks the historic Rochester Castle. The only thing unviable here is Medway Development Company, who are supposed to be developing for the public's benefit and not copying private developers who develop for their shareholders. Otherwise, what is the actual point of a council-owned development company? Any profit left over from this scheme should only be spent on improving the design of the development itself, or it should be invested within the immediate local community. The applicant is not a private developer, so where will this £9 million profit go? What will it be spent on? Will residents in Strood benefit from those profits? Who knows? I can't currently support the recommendation because the development is not currently sustainable due to the lack of Section 106 developer contributions to mitigate its impact. The recommendation at present doesn't comply with what has been promised by government, including recently. I believe the 1.8 million Section 106 contribution should be conditional and be put in place from the outset. If the applicant wishes to change or reduce these contributions at a later date, they can submit a variation application with supporting evidence, and we can cross that bridge when we come to it. There was a situation, in fact, recently with another MDC site where the leader of the council said, what makes the latest proposals more galling is that it's Medway Council's own development company now proposing to rip off residents. I believe the good people of Strood are being ripped off here with this proposal in front of us this evening because there's no Section 106 contributions and local residents won't benefit from the scheme's profits by a publicly owned development company established for the public benefit. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Jones.
Chair, I was disappointed with that last contribution, and I don't want to get involved in sort of a tit-for-tat across the room, especially in view of the fact there's wide support already for this application. But can I just make the one point? I've been on Medway Council from time to time over a number of years, and it's not at all uncommon for the regeneration arm of the council to be supporting a particular planning development, and for the planning officers to be operating entirely independently, giving their judgment on that. The officers behave in a proper way, and I wouldn't want the public listening to this meeting.
I would like that retracted because the inference is that I'm undermining officers of this council. I'm not doing that, so I'd like that retracted, please, from the councillor.
I've no intention of retracting, and I have to say, Chair, Councillor Pearce has made a number of comments which I think are bordering on dangerous legally. I ought to remind the councillor that we're not protected from the law in this committee in the same way that members in the House of Commons are. So can I just make the point again that our officers always behave with absolute integrity and separation of powers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. I'm now going to move over
Point of
to
order.
Councillor
I've
Davies.
not said what
Okay,
the councillor said, so that is an accusation. He needs to retract that, or he will face legal consequences.
Thank you. Over to Dave Harris.
Chair, thank you very much. There's a number of questions that members have raised which I'd like to respond to. Also want to just come in on the discussion that's just taken place. I understand both sides. What I would say is that this is a brownfield site. It's a brownfield site, and I think Councillor Galvin touched on a bit of the history here in terms of the costs involved in bringing forward this site. in terms of its previous industrial site. There'll be contamination on there. It's a quite historical site. There's likely to be a lot of archaeology, and there's conditions covering that. Councillor Hamilton touched on the flood protection. In order to achieve that satisfactorily, there needs to be the flood walls that we've seen here, the land raising that goes with them. All of that impacts on the viability of the site. Now, in those circumstances, where there's a viability, and then there's a viability assessment, and it will come out, as it has done here, that either there needs to be a reduced contribution or it's not viable. As Councillor Galvin has alluded to, the council did market the site, and there were no satisfactory offers from a viable point of view, nor a design point of view, because Duncan and I were assessing the various bids for the site. The consequences of that are that one of the issues that members need to consider tonight, and it's sort of alluded to by Councillor Pearce, is you either have a scheme which has no Section 106 but delivers the affordable through grant funding outside of the Section 106, or you don't get development. And members need to weigh that up, and Councillor Pearce has alluded to this, because without a Section 106, the development here will bring pressure to existing services in Strood and the area. So there will be that pressure, but you won't have any development if you refuse it on those grounds. So I understand where Councillor Pearce is coming from. In relation to Medway Development Company, they're the applicants here. They're not currently appointed as developers. Their role was to bring in architects, which they have done, to work very closely with myself and my team to come up with a scheme which is appropriate for this site. And this site is, as Councillor Galvin has said, it's a stunning site. It's an amazing site to be developed. So, and again, Councillor Pearce is right in that Medway Development Company shouldn't be treated any differently from any private developer. And we absolutely have not done that in this case. They've got good architects. BPTW, really good architects involved in Rochester Riverside. You know the quality of the scheme coming forward there. They came in with the development, initial proposals for this site. And Duncan and myself and my officers said, that's okay, but it's not good enough for this site. So we told them to effectively go away, rethink the scheme, and come back with something which was of an appropriate quality for this site. And credit to them, they licked their wounds, they took a step back, and what they've done is they really, like they did at Rochester Riverside, they really looked at the history and the heritage of this site, the surrounding area, and also the grain and the vernacular of Strood and what's appropriate. And what has come forward is a really well-worked, thought-out scheme. But there is a cost to that, as Councillor Pearce says, in terms of getting that design, and then in terms of the requirements we will bring in terms of, as Peter says, the 41 conditions are on here, in terms of acoustics, in terms of materials, in terms of detailing, all those landscaping, all those other things. It won't be a cheap scheme to develop. The next stage, if members resolve to approve it tonight, would be it goes back to the council and they decide. They probably will have to go through a procurement process as to who would be the developer. Might be MDC, might be someone different. All I will say is that there wasn't a private developer, as Councillor Galvin said, previously interested in the site. The other things I just wanted to touch on, Councillor Galvin, you asked about Rochester Bridge Trust. Very much have carefully thought through their comments, and I can assure you that they have been addressed either through amendments to the scheme or through conditions which will require those further details to satisfy everything from Rochester Bridge Trust. Now, I know that they're talking about the noise from under the arches and the works there, and they have some concern about the cafe bar area and whether people would want to sit out in front of it with work going on under the arches. I think it's a great location for a cafe bar, looking out over Rochester and the castle, and people will accept if there's a little bit of noise from under the arches. If they're sitting outside, if they're sitting inside, there'll be the acoustic protection for that. It is a really, really historic site. And one of the things that's really impressed me, not only in terms of the design, but is in terms of the landscape, which they're proposing. And we've got further details still to come. Peter has touched on the public art. Because of the history of this site, there'll be a lot of things which will come forward in terms of the landscape, which bring the interpretation of that history, be it the Shorts brothers, be it the Sunderland aircraft that used to land on the Medway, be it Aveling and Porter, be it Isaac Newell. And there's some people in the congregation, it's not the church, we might have been church, who are looking to bring forward a statue of Isaac Newell. Sorry, I'm trying to get the so I'm moving forward through it too quickly. Yeah, so where you see the circle there, a statue of Isaac Newell going in there. Now, Isaac Newell was born in Taylor's Lane. He was born on this site. His property doesn't remain, but you all know the history of Isaac Newell. A statue there will not only be a great piece of public art, but will also be a real tourist asset to Medway. People will be coming from particularly Argentina to this site with everything that brings. Hopefully, in terms of flood, Councillor Hamilton, I've assured you that we have made sure that there is the flood protections there and the land raising which addresses that. We have engaged very closely with the Environment Agency on that, particularly reflecting the points you've said about climate change. In terms of affordable homes, absolutely, Councillor Etheridge, there will be access for disabilities, and that's a requirement because we'll be going for grant funding, and that will be a requirement coming through that. So hopefully, members, that's reassured you. I do understand the points that Councillor Pearce has said, and that is something that you need to bring into the balance. The fact that there won't be any Section 106, the fact that this will have impact on services, but we feel that the benefits of this scheme significantly outweigh that in this instance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Galvin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My memory's been jogged a bit as people have been talking. There's another aspect that I think it's only right that members should know and understand. When the site was cleared, the seawall, river walls had to be raised, as Councillor Hamilton has quite rightly pointed out. That's a very, very important issue. Got to make sure that any development on that site is not at risk. The government gave the council some grant funding. I can't remember the exact figures, but the council itself had to borrow money for the rest of that project. That debt has somehow got to be paid back as well, because otherwise every resident in Medway is subsidising the scheme, and that's all right. So there's several £1 million of debt which the council has funded with to put that seawall in place and fund it. So that has got to somehow be taken out as well, and that dramatically alters the viability of the site. My colleague has just mentioned it was about £5 million. So I think members will understand. I think Councillor Jones robustly put it into perspective, and I support him on what he said on that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to go back over to Dave, Chief Planning Officer, to answer a question.
Sorry, Chair, and apologies to Councillor Hamilton. You did ask a second question, which was about traffic, so my apologies for not answering that. This is one of probably the most sustainable sites that we've got in Medway, close to 2 railway stations, close to bus services. If we were to just go for our normal parking standards here and say, yes, there's going to be cars in here, it would cause huge problems to the traffic on the area. What we've done here, because of the sustainability of the site, and those links to the train stations, to the bus services, we're looking to improve the cycleways. There will be pedestrian cycleways through this. Every house will have cycle parking and so on, but we're reducing the car parking on site to well below our standards, partly to reduce that congestion impact, but then there are some highway improvements at the junction which will help to address that. We're satisfied, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Chair. Seems such a shame because we have, I mean, this is such a fantastic and positive application, and we're actually in danger across the parties of actually having some good Christmas spirit here that we agree on how good it is, at least amongst most of us. Making reference to the comments by the Chief Planning Officer, I'm really pleased about you putting more, if you like, flesh on the bone about the historical context. I'm personally very interested in history, both military and social history. I would like to see a statue there. It's not just my interest, though. I think it's an important part of general education for younger people, but for everybody to take, and that then links with pride in the area that you're in. I think all these things are actually very important. The main reason why I'm speaking is that I don't want to get lost. I agree with what Councillor Galvin said about the plaque being found and dust being brushed off. And if we can, if it is doable, I personally would be very pleased to see that happen. Thank you.
Chair, if it's okay, apologies. And I didn't address that question, so my apologies, Councillor Galvin, on that. Councillor Peake, thanks for picking me up on that. We will absolutely work with MDC and with elsewhere in the council to see if we can find that foundation stone. And if we can, then I agree we need to bring it into the landscaping of the scheme in some place and do an appropriate interpretation board or information board explaining it.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just for the avoidance of any doubt, I don't have any problems, particularly with the design of the proposal. My issue, as I've explained, is that in order for it to be deemed sustainable, it has to have those mitigations, which we see with a lot of development in the area. And also, just to clarify, I know where that plaque is, but I'm not revealing it at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member? No? Okay. Well, I'll be supporting this application. I'm pleased with the design and glad that we've also got the 25% affordable housing. We do have applications come from brownfield sites where we don't have that, so it's good to see that we've got that. So I now move over to Vice Chair, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Recommend approval of the Strood Civic Centre site, Rochester ME2 4AU, subject to recommendation A as set out and recommendation B, paras 1 to 41. And note that the Chief Planning Officer is going to work with MDC on the question of the original Thomas Aveling and Porter building plaque. And note also the comments the officer made on the 25% affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Those for?
That's 12, Chair.
Those against?
That's 1, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move on to agenda item 6, planning application of 47A Luton High Street. Peter Hockney, the service manager, will be presenting this application. So over to you, Pete.
Chair, sorry.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, sorry, we're just going to pause for a minute. Okay, so over to you, Pete, to present this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This site relates to 43 to 47A Luton High Street. You can see the site here outlined in red. It's adjacent to the Hen and Chicks, or former Hen and Chicks public house. Here's the aerial photograph showing the site. To the rear is a parking court associated with residential property here, or properties in here. There's another residential property in this location with the garden located there. And as I say, there's the high street that runs through. These are photographs of the front elevation and the general street scene. So you can see the building and its association with the Hen and Chicks public house and how it sits within the street in the current situation. This is the access that's between the application site on the left and the 49 Luton High Street, so the adjacent property on the right-hand side, the white wall. To the property to the rear in this location is the residential property that's located at the end of the access. Here's a photograph of the rear of the Hen and Chicks, and the application site will be behind that. And from Nelson Terrace, excuse me, again you'll see the rear of the Hen and Chicks public house with the adjacent application site. This is a photograph from within the parking courts that you saw on the aerial photograph, with the residential dwelling here and the garden beyond. And the photograph here shows the rear wall of the application site. In terms of the proposal, these are the existing floor plans and the existing elevations. So you can see the main sort of two-storey rooms in the roof building in there, with a sort of smaller single-storey building adjacent. And the proposal is to demolish the buildings on the site and erect a four-storey building with commercial space ground floor and the residential above forming 24 flats over the upper floors. Again, you can see from the side elevations how the building is designed with an internal element and a sort of cut out corner with a sort of green roof located above the ground floor level. And if I go back to the elevations, you can see how it's got a sort of crown roof to it. So there's a shallow pitch with then a degree of flat roofed elements across the majority of the building, which you can see from the roof plan in this location. I think in terms of the concerns that we've got with this application, we consider that the building itself is dominant, particularly you see from the street scene elevation. It's a dominant building. It's out of character with the street scene in general, and causes harm to the Hen and Chicks public house, which we consider to be a non-designated heritage asset in this location. So that's an area of significant concern in terms of the proposal. Again, within the development, there's concern at the level of daylight that's available for future occupiers. There's concern it's not just one window or one flat, so you can see within the amenity section of the report, that it relates to flats 1, 4, 7, 10 and 11. There's concern, so it's not a single unit, it's not a single window. There's concern over a wide variety of the wide range, sorry, of the flat numbers that are in there. And the third main reason for concern is the impact on neighbouring property, and the sheer dominance of that building in relation to the adjacent property and its garden, in terms of it's a development that fills the site. There's no relief to the site boundaries. It's a very significant development that's going in there, and that would, dominate its surroundings. So those are the sort of three main areas of concern, and I think I can't really sum it up much better than the planning balance section on page 77, that talks about that the council can't demonstrate a 5-year land supply. This would provide 24 additional units towards that supply, with some of the social and economic benefits that would go along with that. But the harm in terms of the scale, the mass, the design of the building, the impact on the character and appearance of the area, the overdevelopment of the site, the impact on the non-designated heritage asset, the loss of privacy to neighbouring, loss of amenity to neighbouring dwellings, and the inadequate amenity for future occupiers of the flats, in our view, outweighs the benefits that are put forward as part of this scheme. And therefore, we are recommending that this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. I now open the floor to members. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the report. Not only do I fully agree with the officers' statements that you come forward of rejecting this place, but we all know Luton Road very well. We know it's full of houses that have multiple occupation. We know fully well the amount of rubbish and things that's strewn out on the streets simply because the existing residents don't have anywhere to put it or store it. This will just make the situation fully worse, because this will just aggravate the existing system. It's been mentioned before in a previous application about climate change. There's no indication how these flats are going to be supplied with either gas or electric, or what sort of heating they're going to have. So once again, it doesn't comply with the council's own policies. So along with what the officers already stated, I certainly will not be supporting this application.
Thank you. Councillor Golvin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wholeheartedly agree with the officer's recommendation. This is an overdevelopment of the site. It's too bulky, it's too domineering. Having said that, though, I think this site is still suitable for development, because it's a site I know very well. I drove past it tonight to get here, and we'll have an even better look at it on my way home. Particularly the two single-storey premises on the right-hand side of the site are very unattractive. And yes, there's space there to build up. So I think if the officers could pass on that, you know, this is totally unacceptable, but you know, the principle of building more homes within our existing urban envelope is a very good one. This is an area that needs a little bit of regeneration. As I said, those two single stories commercial premises are very unattractive, to say the least. I'd like to make another recommendation, if officers pass on, if the developers come up with a new scheme, perhaps they would come before the members of the planning committee and local members, and we could have a pre-application discussion on it. I think this would be good, because we do need something there, but this isn't it. It's appalling, and I think the officers have made absolutely the right decision.
Thank you. Councillor Howcroft-Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I have to confess, this is in my ward. I wholeheartedly agree with and thank the officers for due diligence in the report that they've provided, and also the work that they have done with the landowner, and also myself and Councillor Curry, because it is our ward. We've tried to say, and Councillor Golvin's right, we need development, but this has been developed to within an inch of its life, and it's, you know, behind in the terraced, that's been flooded 2018, 2024. There are, you know, our lovely senior citizens there, and they've been phoning Councillor Curry and myself because they are really concerned about the overdevelopment and the impact that it will have on the area. Yes, it is an eyesore. Yes, we need accommodation. But, you know, thank you, Dave Harris and your brilliant team. It's all said in this report, and I thank you to the colleagues that have already spoken, because we know Luton Road, you know, it was resurfaced last week, hooray, and we want it to be upwards and onwards there, because it used to be a lovely little village, and the people and the residents, most of them are fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Habendishe.
Thank you very much, and I wholeheartedly concur with my colleague regarding that. It's a shame because it does need development. When I looked at the plans, I just felt this is a slumification, if that's even a word, of an area, and we don't need to be doing that. It's unfair for the Luton residents to have to endure such a proposal in the first place. It needs to be dismissed. Yes, we need to develop on it, but this is a cash grab. This is building to maximise profits over people's welfare. So no, I will not be supporting it at all.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I agree with everyone who spoke so far. I think we're all in total agreement. Something's required there, but this is certainly not it. And for us to pass something with a lack of daylight, I mean, that's not good in, you know, well-being and everything else. Yes, if they come back something small, lower, a bit more open, I think we'd all be in agreement, but the officers have got it dead right on this one. I will support their refusal on this.
Thank you. Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Chair. Where everybody's got there already, I agree with absolutely everything everybody's said on this so far, so I won't repeat it. When we go back to the developers, mind you, before I make this comment, I came up with a very technical thought in my head when I saw that particular drawing, which was the word weird. So can we urge, when we go back to the applicant, to actually think about the aesthetics of some place, how it looks? I am also concerned about the overdevelopment, just the sheer scale of it, but can it be encouraged into their mind thought process that we want something that actually works visibly as well? I do think that is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Gilbourne.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I agree with everything that everybody said. It's completely out of place, particularly when it's like a village location, the old village of Luton, really. So anything that is on that sort of scale just isn't appropriate. But with it bordering the hen and chickens, I know there's been proposed applications for that to be converted to up to 10 flats, I think, and then it got withdrawn a couple of times. I don't know if Dave can say anything about whether there's an ongoing application coming forward again for that. Thank you.
Over to you, Dave.
Chair, thank you very much, and thank you for raising that, Councillor Gilbourne. We actually had some really positive discussions regarding the hen and chick side, and a scheme evolved which we were then happy with and was respectful to the location and the site. And I agree with everything that members have said, that there is a potential for something to happen here. And my officers were trying to have positive discussions with the applicant, because it's the same applicant, and saying, well, look, you've managed to do something really sensitive with the hen and chicks. Let's work on this site and get something equally sensitive and appropriate here. So we weren't, as members said, we weren't saying no. We were just saying, well, something can happen here. 100% what members have said, this is not acceptable for all the reasons that Peter has set out. So we will go back, we'll have those discussions again. I'm hoping that hen and chicks will come back with the scheme that we were supportive of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other member? No. Yeah, I agree with all the points raised by officers and members. It is an overdevelopment of the area. It's far too tall, overbearing for the neighbouring properties as well. So I will therefore be voting against this application. Thank you. Over to Councillor Jones, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Location 43 to 47A, Luton High Street, Luton, Chatham. The clerk will have noted the comments on a more suitable scheme, so I'll stick to the recommendations. The recommendation is refusal on grounds 1 to 5 as set out in the report. I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Those for...
Refusal.
Sorry, those for refusal of the application.
That's 14, Chair.
Thank you. The application is therefore refused. Before I end tonight's planning committee, I'd just like to say thank you to George, who is sadly leaving us, our principal transport planner. Thank you for all your input at our planning committees, and wish you all the best in your new role. And welcome to Stephen, who will be taking over.
Seconded.
And I'd also like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and see you next year. Thank you.